Okay, welcome to Stampscapes Live. What we're going to be doing is going way back to the very basics of stamp usage here in terms of building compositions. Now, there's all kinds of different ways you can use stamps. Scenic stamps in particular, in terms of creating your cards and compositions, you can use elements individually with quote stamps or something like that. But I'm going to show you the basics on building a composition, that involves more than kind of one layer of depth. We're talking about maybe foreground, midground, background types of applications. And we'll try to get as much variety from just this set here as we can. And then I'll show you how to go into some additional types of touches to push depth within this kind of structuring. And I'll show you some outside stamps as well. But first of all, let's just go with just your basic compositions here. I'm going to be using just a variety of surfaces here. I even have some of the blue Star Dream paper here, and we'll go with the slim line. But for the most part, quarter page cards, standard card size pieces right here. And like I said, I'm not going to be finishing off too many of these if I do any. But I just want to go over just the basics for those that have never done any form of scenic stamping before. Hello, Kay. How are you today? Or tonight? Okay. So, just your various cardstocks. I have some glossy. I have some the matte. Let's see here. This looks like a Star Dream here. A little bit of blue. Maybe I'll go into a foil or something like that as well. Let's see if I have something here. Printable vinyl. Okay, maybe we'll try that out too. If I do that, though, I'm going to have to finish it off a little bit because it looks kind of weird if you don't do anything to it but just stamp the imagery on top of it. But let's see what we can get here in a short amount of time. Let's see, what time is it right now? For me, it's 7:35 p.m. Hello, Crazy Cat and Linda. All right, so let's just start off with your basic stuff here, okay? So the Stampors, what do we call it? Program or whatever used Stampors event used nature set number 11, okay? And what's really great about that is it gets a lot of people that don't know anything about scenic stamping, or they just haven't tried it out yet. It gets a lot of new people, kind of maybe that might have felt inclined to try it, or they wish they knew how to use it. Sometimes that's their kind of starting point into scenic stamping, with an event like that, because what I'm doing with that is I'm doing a follow-up class for them as well. But just going over some basics like this should be really good as a preliminary for that. But people don't have to go over these preliminary types of things, lessons for the card that we're going to be doing in that follow-up class. I'm going to be taking them through a mirror card. So a lot of them, it's their first, I don't know, whatever, leap into scenic stamping. I'm taking them through a mirror card. But the mirror cards are really easy, though. They just look, rather complex. All right, so let's see. Let's do both dye-based ink and StazOn. Let's just go with the StazOn in case I do add a little bit of tone to these pieces right here. Okay, so just a basic background. This is not going to be for a lot of you guys, okay? But let's see, I should have had the insert here. But in a lot of these different sets, and in this set, as one of them within the Stampscapes line. Some sets are thematic, all wolves or something like that, or, birds, that type of format. But these ones right here, I think it was sets number 6 through, 5 through 10 for sure, are kind of little systems. I mean, there's more than that, but there's little systems, and what I usually include in them. I think it was 9 through 12 initially when I put together these sets. They included foreground, kind of main focal points, sky, okay, and filler focal points like a little canoeist or something like this. In this case, the rowboat, something to go up in the sky in the form of the flock here. And these were originally, I'm going off subject matter here, but they were originally designed for some kind of catalog. I don't remember the catalog, but it used to have like a bunch of different products in it. And I don't know, they used to send it out to like 25,000 people or something like that. And it was like a mail order type of situation. I don't remember what it was called. But they contacted me one time and said, hey, we'd like to include some Stampscapes stuff. Would you be interested? And at the time, I don't think I had. I think I had some discontinued sets, that's sets number 1 through 4 for my A Stamp in the Hand days. But I came up with these other sets, including this one. Okay, so when you're stamping out some sort of scene, a lot of times what I do is I start off with my main focal point. So if your scene is going to be about a waterfall or a cabin or a lakeside cove, those main structures, they're often the largest elements within a scene, but not always, okay? I usually start off with that because it's just like organizing anything. Like you have a bunch of stuff that you have to put away in a closet and they're all different sizes, a bunch of different boxes. You're going to start with the largest one, okay? But that's just a general way. We don't all do that in scenic stamping. Sometimes, you might be doing a hiker or something like that and you want to build a scene around them or something of that sort, so you can do that. But just when I'm kind of teaching people getting into it, I talk about your main elements, okay? So in this one right here, we have the palms with that small, and I'm adding that in. It's not necessarily the largest stamp in here, but it's kind of the focal point. If you have cabins or something like that, that would be kind of the focal point of a scene, some kind of man-made structure, okay? So I'm stamping that out, and then when you have that down there, it's easy to use all of this filler imagery around it, especially the foreground elements. Yeah, Linda, you got your notification. That's great. And hello, Nicole in Perth. Good to see you. Good morning to you. Hello, Jeannie. Okay, so we started off with our main element. Now, with something like this here, the Palm Island, this could be in front of or in back of or to the side of this structure right here, okay? Now, like I said, this is going, really back to the basics for a lot of you, okay? This is not designed for you guys, unless you haven't done scenic stamping before. But, okay, so what I do is one of the things that a lot of people who are getting into scenic stamping, they've done a lot of masking when they've built or utilized separate elements together, okay? But with Stampscape stamps, I've designed them to where you hopefully should not have to do a lot of masking, if at all, okay? So I put this element a little bit higher than this one, so it looks like it's in back of, and it's just a small portion of it. This one is lower, so the lower you go in kind of Western composition, it represents something that's closer to you. So if I stamp something way here in the background or higher up, it represents something farther back in space, okay? So that's another thing that people kind of, they're not used to doing a lot of times in a lot of types of stamping, okay? They're used to stamping on, something on a single plane. There might be a little bit of overlap, but it might represent the distance of like, I don't know, a few inches. You overlap one image and cut it out or something like that, or you mask over it, and then there's another image next to it, another one, word stamp, something like that. But it usually doesn't represent like, 3,000 miles in here, or whatever it might be. If I stamp this moon, I don't know how far the moon is from the Earth or something like that, but This could be a sun or a moon. Sun's even farther away, right? So if we stamp that in there, that represents something like, of great distance. So you have a few palm trees in here that are 5 feet, and then you have the moon in the background. You know what I mean? That's not what a lot of stamping is in other genres of stamping. So that's a little bit different there. Hello, CM and Julie. Good to see you. Okay, so that being said, that's the type of thing that I'm usually going over with people that are just really new to scenic stamping. All right. All right, so that represents something a little bit higher up. We're looking at a little grove or something like this, or I could, create a little bit of an island area in here. And, okay, so sky figures, okay? I'm stamping out my main image. We have our foreground right here, okay? And this is a background image, but it's the same image, just higher up there like that. Now, if this was going to be a sun or something like that, I would stamp that out in, I don't know, maybe like an orange or something like that. Okay, something warm tone. And I'll do that later on. But let's just say, for the sake of this particular scene that I'm just stamping all in a stays on black, we're going to make this into a moon this time. So I'm going to stamp it in black right in here. So that's a really distant object in terms of the moon. We would have to color around it to really make that pop out. Okay, so we've gone really far in the distance in that. And again, it's higher up on the composition. It could be, rising from the horizon or something like that. But again, if it's rising from the horizon, it's going to be higher than our main imagery, right? So right now, this is our foreground right here because it represents the closest thing to us. All right, now we're going to do this several times and get it ingrained for those that haven't done this type of thing or seen it before. Palm fronds right here, okay. And this isn't going to be like a, it's going to be a kind of a smaller, palm tree kind of growing in the foreground right here, okay. I'll show you the palm stalks later on, but here's a couple of these coming in this way. I have this frond kind of leaning this way. And we'll have the palm frond on this side coming in from this side, okay? So like this, no masking at all, has been done in this scene right here. And I don't know, let's just use these just for the sake of it here. It's becoming a kind of a busy looking scene because I don't have any tones in here, but maybe we can add a little bit of those in there later. Okay, so focal point right there. A little bit of this rowboat, okay. And how about some birds flying in the sky? It's a moon, they're flying at night, which they wouldn't be. But it just looks good in scenes, so you can do anything you want in scenes. All right, so that is that. So you have foreground now. And this is kind of midground now because you've used something closer to you. We have our focal point, main object, background, and I don't really kind of refer to sky elements as backgrounds. I usually just say sky elements, because it's, it's known that they'd be really far in the distance like that. All right, so that is that. Okay, so let's do that type of thing again. Let's go with our main object, filler stamps, focal point, foreground. I forgot what I called it, the 4 Fs or something like that at one time. Okay. Quite a few sets, but moved house, and I have no idea what box they're in. Uh-oh. I hate moving, unpacking. I think I hate packing up more than unpacking, but oh, what a hassle. I love it when it gets done though, because usually they're in a little bit better of a, things are usually a little bit more organized after I move because I have to, you have to kind of streamline a little bit. You get rid of some things that I don't know, just haven't used that you still have that, I don't know, you just don't feel like moving. Okay, so we have a lot of stuff going on in this one. Let's go with a landscape format on this one, but let's just use the Palm Island, okay? So we'll use this one as the main imagery, you know, focal point. It's going to be this little inlet with I don't know, a couple different islands in here. Let's put this island a little bit farther back in the distance. Okay. I'll do a horizon line in this one if we have time here. Let's see. I'm not racing the clock here, but I can't be on for too long. My wife took my son to go to the gym tonight from a 6 to 9 thing. So it's like, okay, I'm going to jump on here. Okay, so we have our, you know, our main kind of structuring in here. And let's go with those overhanging foreground elements. Okay, now let's say that, you know, we have some palm stalks on the side here, okay? If you have something higher up, okay, no, I said if you have things lower on the, you know, your piece right here, where it usually represents something closer to us. So if I have these palm fronds up here, it doesn't mean that they're in back of these trees in, you know, farther off in the distance, because what you would have these palm stalks going down here, right? That would be growing these leaves. So it represents something that's going down here, lower on the horizon than this space right here. So overhanging palm fronds in here. I didn't push scale too much. I'll show you the larger palm frond later on here. But let's go with this right here. These little things like this here in the corners also act as a framing device. I often add vignettes in my scenes using darker colors. Even if it doesn't have to be black or something like that, but if you add a darker tone in your pieces, in the four corners, it really frames things off and contains all of this different imagery in here. So when you get a composition like this, it's really busy, but if you just kind of frame it off with a little bit of tone, it'll contain everything and unify things a little bit more, okay? So keep that in mind when you're stamping your pieces out. You know, it's not going to look like it does with every element on here in black or a dark color against a white piece of paper. You're going to have other types of things going on in there. Hello, Laura. Good to see you. All right, let's see here. Let's add in our little subject matter in here. Or focal point, you know. I guess the subject matter in here is that, but if I spotlight this little character in here, your eye will go right to it. Okay. And all right, let's do this one right here. Let's just do this one black again. We'll just make this a moon again. I'll do it as a sun in my next piece, I guess. Hopefully the stays on ink will dry really fast. Okay. All right, so we have that in there. I mean, if I didn't have this island right here too, if we were just doing kind of an open area like that, you can put that moon or sun or whatever you want in as a reflection as well. Let's do that on this next one right here. Okay, so anyways, you have your kind of structuring, your main foundation stamp, foreground, focal point. I really need something down here too. I need some reeds or something like that. But let's just stick with the imagery from this set right here. Let's go for the a really simple structure with the moonlit reflection in here. Okay, maybe I'll add a little bit of tone to it too. Sometimes they say, you know, without any of that coloring on some of these, just doing these structures like this, these stamp sketches, I don't know. I mean, they definitely look like they're missing something. Okay, let's go like this. Let's leave a little bit of an opening on this one. Okay. And let's say that this is a moon here, so again in black. Okay, and I'll go like this. Let's see, let's go a little bit lower on the horizon, like about like so. This isn't going to be a perfectly mirrored image because I'm just going to stamp it like that and like that down there. Again, it would be really flip-flopped. If you want to take the time to do like a mirror image impression, you can do something like that. I rarely take the time to do something like that because I just, in the end result, when you add all those different tones in here, I don't think it really matters. It doesn't matter enough for me to do that, so I don't bother. Okay, one of the things with something like this that I like to do is I like to add in something going in front of my reflected area. It'll be birds or something like that in the sky one, or, you know, some sort of animal or, you know, person going across that lighting down in this area. For me, it looks like a real kind of a spotlit area, okay, like on a stage or something like that. So let's go with this, and I'll put that little canoeist right there. Maybe he's doing some night fishing or something like that. I mean, it would be good to do that in blue or something like that too. There's a little bit more contrast with the black. But again, I just want to do these really quick examples like this so that people that have never done it before really, you know, I want them to get the gist of it and the spirit of it too. The spirit of it, a lot of the spirit of doing these stamp sketches is just kind of getting into it. There's a lot of processes that I've seen out there, especially with outline styles of the stamps and things like stamp positioners, okay? Sometimes those are really great things. You know, you can, if you miss an impression, you can get you can straighten it out, you know, with another impression over the top of it, getting a full impression, or if you want to build up some inks or something like that. But sometimes it takes a really long time to do that. Where the spirit of this is, it's much more freestyle and just getting those impressions down like that. I mean, I don't know, when did I start this video? But, you know, here's three. I was blabbing a lot too, but, you know, we're cranking out these stamp sketches here in a hurry without doing any type of masking or careful positioning or something like that. This is done, that stays on ink. So let me just show you, get people the gist of a little bit of tone laid on here. I know me, I'm going to lay a little bit of tone down and kind of want to finish it, so I'm going to try to not do that and just give people the gist of this here. And as I say that, I imagine myself, you know, going on with a splatter painting and, you know, crystals and stuff like that. But although that'll be a future video if I do something like that. Okay, so you can use whatever color applicating process you want. This happens to be on glossy cardstock right here. I'm going to just lay down some dye-based inks really fast on here. And again, it's not going to be a complete scene, but I'll give you the gist of what something like this would look like with a little bit of tone laid down, okay? Okay, so if this is the moon, we want there to be moonlight in here, so we're just going to tone around the moon and leave that moon, you know, either white or just, you know, it'll have a little bit of tone over the top of it. If I leave it white, then I can add a little bit of a warmer tinge to it. If you like, you know, having your moons, you know, with a little bit of warmth to it, you can do that. All right, so going in here like so. Let's go with the darker color. The summer sky is too light. Okay, so adding this down like this. Mento inks on glossy cardstock are really nice and kind of gel-like, so they really glide on the paper really nicely. Okay. So we're going like this. I want that retention of light in the reflection area as well. Sometimes I don't make the reflected area quite as light as the light source itself, okay? But just to give people the gist of kind of what's going on with these scenes, okay? Again, you know, this video is not for, not targeting the experienced stamper at all. But for me, I don't know. For me, doing stamp sketches, though, oftentimes, if I don't have any intention of coloring my scenes in a session, okay, a lot of times I come up with different compositional ideas than I would have, because you kind of get into a groove with the stamps and you might start doing different compositions, or you might use your stamps in a different way than, you may have thought before. So I come up with stuff all the time. I don't know, there's a little bit of a different spirit to it. I think it could be familiarity too, just doing, the same stamps in, I don't know, whatever, 5, 6 scenes all at the same time or something like that. Or I don't know, I'm convinced a lot of times that we're using a different kind of hemisphere of the brain for some of the different parts, processes of making a card, doing the composition. It's like building something, right? It's like construction or something like that. It might be somewhat analytical, maybe. Maybe we're using a little bit more of the left brain or something like that. I mean, there's the creativity of it as well, but I don't know. I feel like I'm using a different part of my brain too when I'm using light types of media on dark. So things like white gel pens, white pigment inks, something like that, adding lighting back into something that's darker. Okay, but here's what this is looking like right here. It's kind of we're getting the gist of what this scene would look like here. Hello, Paulette. I hope everyone is doing okay. And you're not in one of those states being affected by those hurricanes and whatnot. Okay, but here is, a really fast application of this right here. Okay. So we have our kind of moonlit scene. Now I would go darker out here, but this is just kind of the gist of kind of what this is about, and that's what I would be doing on something like this. On this one right here, I don't have like a formal, like reflected area right here from my moon, but I would do the same thing that I did down here. I'd leave an illuminated area to represent the light reflecting off of the water down here. Oh, let's just do it. Okay. I'm not going to finish these scenes off, but let's just show you what I mean by that, okay? Okay, so let's just go. I'm going to go on with this darkest of tone here just to give people the gist of it, okay? So you can kind of see what this would look like. I'm just kind of going from the outside in like this, okay? If you're doing this on a matte cardstock, you can do pastels or colored pencils for this process of toning in. Okay. So this concept right here is not media specific, okay? It's, it would be blue colored pencils out here or blue values in, I don't know, whatever, pan pastels or something like that. If it's that, you can do this type of thing with markers, if you're doing your Copic marker type of thing, or whatever types of inks. These days we're using a lot of foils and stuff like that. I don't know what you use on foils. I'm still learning myself on that. But okay, but here is the little spotlit area right down here, okay? And then one of the things I like to do is I like to leave my rooftops a little bit lighter than the side of the structures, okay? But here you have this, and here you have your moonlit night, okay? So, easy stuff, right? this little area down here. A lot of people, find lighting to be kind of a tougher concept right here. Okay, so if people are coming from different forms of stamping where there's a lot of outline designs, okay, a lot of times when people think of a space down here, they're used to filling in spaces uniformly, like if it's an outline design, okay? So they see this field right here and it's colored in uniformly like that, okay? It could be a part of a figure or something like that. So if there, a lot of times when people are thinking of something like this right here coming from that type of process, they would fill in this area uniformly like that, okay? Instead of retaining some areas of light. So like on these rooftops right here too, I have a little bit of blue. Yeah. Okay. My camera's going nuts these days. I'm shutting off and starting back up. But it's varying the values of your different areas and objects. Here we go. Okay, so in our sky, it's not uniformly colored up here, but we have this area that's a little bit darker and it's going to lighter right here, right around our moon. Our main object, there's a little bit of coloring on it, a little bit of lighting on top, and our area down here, our third area, there's areas of dark and light like that. In theory, or in as far as the process goes, it means you're doing less work than you would on other types of coloring, okay? You're coloring and lighting here because I'm not doing as much of it as you would if you're filling in this whole thing. So in theory, you're doing less work. So it's just kind of holding off on those lighter areas like that. So you have this one right here. Here you can see what it looks like with two different tones of blue, how much richer of a surface that is. And here's just one color of blue right here. Now, this is just to give people the gist of, kind of what these pieces would look like if I went in and colored it. I would probably add in 2 more tones of blue in here to make it look much richer and deeper. Okay, and like I said, this one is just kind of to give people an idea of lighting. Okay, I had to do that right here because these pieces right here look kind of weird without any kind of, lighting or coloring in here at all. You know what I mean? But this is just a stamp sketching video here for compositional types of processes and ideas. And let's see, I need to change my exposure again. Okay, so that is that. Hello, Caroline. Do your pastels rub off like chalk? Well, Caroline, what you do is you don't use a glossy cardstock for your pastels. You would use, a matte cardstock for that. Lighting is easy, Nicole. You just have to hold off. If you've come from that other, most people are always coloring in spaces, okay? And if that's what they've been practicing for a while, it's creating kind of a muscle memory within kind of someone's brain too. It's like you fill in areas uniformly. You just have to hold off a little bit. So one of the things that I do, this is basically the foundation for everything that I do right here. And it's this right here, okay? See that right there? And you're thinking, well, what is that? Okay. In all of my toning like that, I'm kind of going from a darker perimeter to a lighter interior. Sometimes I'll streak a little bit more like that. And this is coming from the outside edge in, okay? But sometimes if there's an area that's light right here, it's a shorter stroke like that, okay? And this is with colored pencils as well, okay? This was a lot of colored pencils. This is the scene that I did last night, okay? But, okay, now, well, this one's a little bit different, but what I've done is can you see that kind of transition from dark to light right here? It's going from here to the outside edge because I have a spotlit area like this. But here's that dark to light like that, dark to light like that. But it's also, I did it with my pencils in here. I kind of went darker out here and lighter in here, okay? So you just transition your tones like that. There's transitioning from the bottom of rock to the top and from the outside in. So how that looks with the colored pencil, and it's really nothing more than this as far as the process goes. This is your colored pencil. It's one colored pencil. People are used to coloring in a lot of times like that. uniformly with this, but what I'm doing is I'm just going like this. I mean, you can make this as, streak as long as you want, but here you are going from dark to light like that, okay? And you're always doing it from the outside edge in. I mean, you can do that on 98% of your pieces. It doesn't have to be a landscape scene, but you can create lighting, in just a basic area like this. Let's say there's no moon right here. Let's just say there's something that says, happy birthday or something like that. You can just illuminate your word stamps or whatever, or anything, with this transitioning like that, okay? So just kind of, think of it like a finger painting type of thing too. You're just kind of going from the outside edge and like that. And not just like this, and it's like a hard line like that, but do that little transition like that. Taper it, okay? All right, so that being said, let's go on with a couple more compositions like this. Oh, okay, so let's say we did 3 compositions like this, 3 stamp sketches like this, okay? A lot of people are enjoying doing slimline cards these days, your elongated pieces, bookmarks, something like that. Let's go with this. This is a half page, I think, 4 1/4 by 8 1/2. Let's do something really large on this one. It's pretty large for this set right here if we're only using these stamps right here. Maybe this is the one where I'll use some palm fronds, palm stalks in here too. Okay, so let's go with this, and pastels or something like that would be really fantastic with this set. Let's say you do kind of a transitioning sunset in the background or something like that, and then you just take your stamps and stamp right over the top of it with black ink or something of that sort. It could be a sunset or twilight type of transitioning tone in here. So a lot of times when people are thinking tropical, they're thinking of sunsets, which is a perfect type of setting for this set right here. Okay, so let's do this one right here. Let's start off with our focal point like this. I hardly ever use this palms with hut stamps twice in the same scene. It's usually once, but someone did it, and they stamped it like 2 or 3 times. It looked like a little village of huts in there, which was really cool. Okay, let's go about here. I mean, if you want more sky, then stamp it lower. If you want more water, then stamp it higher. So it's really where you want it to go. It can even be, let's say we're stamping something in the sky, and we want a lot of sky out here. You stamp it like this and have a huge amount of sky up here. If you have a huge amount of sky up here, that's a perfect spot for like a quote stamp or something like that, text. Now, I'm not leaving a lot of room for text in these ones, but if I had something to stamp out, I would work my whole composition around where those word stamps are going to go. So keep that in mind too. Yeah, Jeannie, you can't go back. I wonder how few stamps you can stamp on a scene, Jeannie, without going nuts. Can you do a scene using, 3 stamps? Or something like that. I'm talking like, not on like a 2 by 2 inch one either, but if you did like a 1/4 page scene, actually you hardly do any 1/4 page scenes at all anymore. Linda, you should be doing Linda should be doing like 30 by 40 inches. Linda, you should be doing like all poster size pieces. Okay, so that has been stamped in here. Let's do some imagery to flank this image right here. I can have this like at the end of this little thing where it's like, the huts are at the end of this little, I don't know, whatever you call it, this little, not sandbar or something like this. But this can be open ocean out here if we want to. Let's not make that. Or I don't know, it could be open ocean, but this could be another island. But this could also just be this cove that's wrapping around this way, okay? Let's go up here, a little bit like that. Okay, oops, I didn't stamp my top portion of that. I have to get used to stamping with stays on still, because if I hold this down too long, it's like stuck, like, it's like, it feels like I've glued it down to the surface like that. So sometimes I try to stamp and lift up too fast, and then I didn't stamp out the whole thing. But when you stamp out things a little bit lighter like that, it just looks like it's something that's more distant. Speaking of that, let's do that right here. I'm not really good at it with the stays on, because sometimes when I go for that second impression, I go like that and then I go like this, and then it's like that stays and it's like so dry on there that it just doesn't stamp out at all. But let's give it a try here. Okay, let's see. I mean, maybe I should have done this. You can do like imagery in, one type of ink. Let me see if that's even going to stamp out right there. Yeah, I think it is. But you can do, use, multiple types of inks for your impressions, for your compositions like this, okay? Okay, go like that, and we'll go with this in the distance, hopefully. It didn't stamp out that much lighter. Oh, okay, well, it's a little bit lighter. All right, so we have that, and we have these areas down here. Slimline format. This would be a good spot to add text down here, too. I usually think about it in the sky first. Well, there's a little bit of space up here. Maybe I'll do something with this with some text in here in this video. Okay, so that is that. Okay. So I'm going to push depth a little bit here. Okay, so let's stamp out our foreground imagery again, but let's push depth in this one. I'll show you what this looks like with a larger frond. This is just so much of a larger piece like this that sometimes I like to add in, a larger, closer element to us, okay? Not with these images, but I'll show you what I'll add in here. So let's go with a little bit of a overhang like this, okay? And you can have other, fronds coming in from here or something like that too. But let's go with the smaller ones at first here. One thing I like about this stays on is I was able to add these tones on here just right away and not have to worry about them kind of smearing, especially if I'm using a brand, a freshly inked up dye base pad. For me, it's the Marvy pad. But when I'm doing these stamp sketch videos like this, most of the times I really re-ink my black pad before I start doing them. But then when I do that, I can't really go in and tone them right away, because that ink is kind of puddled up in these solid areas, at least for a few minutes, before I can really start adding in a ton of ink on them. So, okay, so anyways, here's a larger frond like this, okay? Now this is really pushing depth like this. When you do something like this, or when you do these objects like that, it represents like a palm frond that would probably be about 20 feet, 15, 20 feet away from us. But when you do something like this, it represents something that you can almost reach out and touch. So in a sense, if you add something like this into the mix right here, you're adding in, if you have these other fronds in here, you're adding in that extra, I don't know, whatever, 15 feet of visible space in this composition right here, okay? So let's see what that looks like or does to the composition from, I don't know, I feel it's like an emotional type of perspective, when you can reach out and touch something, or maybe it's a sensory perspective, when you add things into your scenes that are within reach, that you can touch with your hand, I feel that it kind of engages the senses a little bit more. Everything is visual right here, but when you add something really close to you, from that sensory perspective, I don't know, it just, we feel like touching things like that are close to us, unless you're stamping like a porcupine there. Or a shark in this situation. Okay, I really should do another frond that's coming in, that's bending in from this way. I don't have that on this larger one like this. But now let's do it like this. I'll go like this. So that what this is also doing is it's putting us as a viewer on kind of a near shore, right? Because we have this foliage coming in like that. So when people are looking at scenes, there's a little bit of a kind of a psychological transportive type of thing that's going on. It's like if you look at a photograph or something like that of a really nice looking location, you put yourself into that photograph saying, oh my God, that would be really great to see, go there. You see a beach or something like that, or you see something like a tropical lagoon and it's 120 out where Laura is in the summertime. And there's a cool kind of, tropical scene. Maybe it's a Twilight type of scene, or, you know what I mean? Whatever. You kind of, subconsciously, I believe that people transport themselves into these scenes. So as creators of these scenes too, that goes the same for us. So it kind of moves us into those pieces right here. But here's that larger frond like that. Now I didn't use the whole, the whole thing. I mean, it could be coming in from the top here if it was up there too. But here's the difference between kind of that larger frond. I mean, I'm not saying that it should be used in here. These are much smaller scenes like this, but see what this does right here in terms of pushing depth within this space right here. You have something really close to you. I don't know if we can quite reach out. Maybe it's like 6 feet away from us or something like that, but it is really close to you. And it really frames off the scene really nicely like that. Okay, and let's go with, let's see here. I like this composition right here. I'll have to finish this one off. Okay, I'm not going to do the sun on that one, or the sun or the moon type of thing. I got to think about this one because I really want to finish this one off right here. Okay, so let's go with, I mean, you don't have to do any, that sky figure in there at all either. I just thought of something. If I didn't stamp that bird, then I could have stamped like a word stamp there too. Okay, maybe I'll just leave this blank down here in case I want to stamp something out right here. Wish you were here. Or if you have little, people have other types of imagery too. You have cranes or a bird you can put here in the foreground. Or if you have, little kids or people or something like that, you can have them in this water section right here. Okay, it could be a daytime type of scene or whatever. This can also be sand too. You can put sand down here if you stamp, or you could color this area in here with like, sand like tans or something like that, warm tones. This can also just be a beach down here, that has tides that kind of, come up and down or something like that too. So you can do something like that as well. This doesn't have to be all, water within that space like that. It could be like a, I don't know, whatever. A tidal zone. Is that what you call it? I can't remember. Okay, so that is that. That's the larger format like that. Let's see right here. Let's do something in this, okay? And let's do a composition. Let's do the same composition just so we do a little comparison contrast type of thing. Let's do this right here. This is a real simple composition like this. But let's do it on the blue Star Dream paper right here, okay? All right, so you're going with a different value of paper. It doesn't have to be Star Dream. It could be any color, of paper, cardstock, or whatever you want to work with, okay? Okay, so that being said, dark objects on a dark piece of paper like this are not going to show up very much because there's a lack of contrast between the two, right? I think my StazOn is getting a little bit dry from being open. Here, let me ink that up right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to utilize some white ink on here. By the way, there was that great live stream for the Nancy Stance channel doing some stuff that I've been kind of curious about myself, and that's what is one of the better white inks. So she used oil, solvent, and water-based white inks on there. Not all of them were pigment inks either. I think there was one from, I don't know how it's not a pigment ink, but that stays on opaque. But anyways, here's that. See how dark that is right there? But you can barely see it against that background like that, okay? So I'll show you what you do on that. This one requires a little bit of planning, but not a whole lot, okay? It's going to be a really easy application, okay? So if you just know that you're going to have like a moon in here somewhere, what you're going to do, personally, I use Brilliance on iridescence metallic papers, and iridescent types of things like Star Dreams, I think fall under the category of metallics, even though they're not like a silver or something like that. You know, there's Pearl X types of, or Pearl X? I can't remember the name of that other type of paper that I get from Kelly Paper a lot. But those Star Dream ones, I don't know what they have in those. There's mica or something like that. But Brilliance inks are water-based and they'll dry on this type of paper just fine. Okay, so if you know where your moons are going to go, or moon singular or something like that, then you just have to kind of add some of that tone down there like this. And here's that thing too. Remember that whole thing about transitioning like that? I'm going to do this, but I'm transitioning it from light to dark out here. When I'm doing it with colors, I'm going from dark to light in here, but this is light to dark. So it's like the opposite. So I'm adding a little bit more tone in that light source area, but then see this right here? I'm just transitioning it out like this, or you can go like this if you want to, like this little kind of striations in the sky. I'll show you how you do that. So you go from the center like that, and then you come out like this, okay? And see, I'm not just going like this all the way out. It's kind of more of this flicking type of motion like this, okay? Like that. And that's the natural movement of your hand as opposed to going like this and like that, you know, like flat against that like that, okay? That way it won't transition out if you do that. But let me just show you what this looks like this, okay? Now, I don't always do this right here. I'm just doing this as an example because we talked about this. Okay, so here's my reflected area for that moon. Okay, and you don't have to kind of measure things out or something like that. Like, oh my God, it's like the size of a dime, so I can't get, you know, beyond that or something like that. That's not like that at all, okay? So come out like this. A little bit of flick like so. If you do these Star Dreams of these colored types of papers like this, these are like some of the fastest cards you'll ever do. You know, that involve, you know, some lighting and stuff like that. You can do this on, can you imagine something like this on that crazy foil? Where did I put that foil? I think I put it away. Oh. I don't know if we can do it on this. We'll have to try it. I used to think these Star Dreams are kind of more dynamic of a paper, you know, because they're iridescent and reflective like this. Now this is like nothing compared to like this, you know, in terms of, I don't know, whatever impact. All right, so that's, you know, that's it right there. You know, you just kind of go on like that. Build it out a little bit. Don't go on. Okay, now here's the thing, though. People that think this is hard, don't make it a hard process. And the way I'm not making it hard is this isn't just like this huge goopy mass of super wet ink. So if you get a brand new pad or something like that, you know, white pigment ink pad, These inks, all pigment ink pads are really thick. Some of them are oil-based too, so really be mindful about how much ink is on here. Maybe even blot it off a little bit too before you start going on there. And go with a light touch at first too. And you can really control the amount of ink that's been applied down there. And then really utilize your drier applicator. This is a 100% cotton ball right here that I've used about 3 times. It's probably going to have it, be done, after this one right here. But there you get that transitioning out there. That's the same thing when I'm doing this tone like this with these colored pencils or something like this. Well, not the colored pencil because that's dry medium, but the wet dye-based inks, you're utilizing your drier application of it. See, there's even some ink still on there like that. And see, you can get those really nice gradated, varied applications of that color. That's what's nice about using something that's absorbent like this, like a paper towel or a sponge like that. It really retains that ink on there, and it really can work for you like that. So absorbent types of materials. Okay, so back to our compositions right here. Let's go with this one right here. Let's go with, let's see. I don't know if I'll get it exactly. I'm not going to measure it. That's not the point of this, Let's see, what did someone say there? Nope, 3 stamps or less does my head. We should do a challenge. I was mentioning before, I don't know when it was, but I was saying we should do a challenge of, I don't know, a 3 stamps or less piece or something like that. I think it wasn't really a challenge, but the monster maps, it wasn't a challenge going the other way. See how many stamps you can use in a scene. But I think it was it could have been that a contest or a challenge of that sort, with so many stamps being used in people's monster maps. I don't know. I think on some of those pieces, I don't know. Like, I don't know how many Linda used on hers, but there might have been. If people don't know what I'm talking about, it was a video a little while ago where I was doing kind of like a amusement park map type of thing, but it was just Halloween themed, okay? And I did, it wasn't 11 by 17, it was 10 by 16, I think. Is that what I did? Or was it 10.5 by 16.5? Or whatever, it was, they're big, large formats, but I really packed those scenes full of different images, a lot of my private collection stamps and whatnot. And I don't know, it was just really fun. I don't usually go for clutter in my scenes. That almost looks just good without this stamp being used in there. I'll use the stamp, and some of you are going to say, oh, it looked better without that stamp. What I did here, I usually don't drag out that, that white ink like that, but you can see the trees a lot better with that white ink kind of dragged out like that, huh? But yeah, clutter was good. Normally I say clutter bad, but clutter was really good in those monster maps. And the more stuff people use, the more things that there were to kind of look at and discover and explore. Okay, on this one right here, I am going to blot off a little bit of this perimeter, which is not a bad idea to do with sky imagery. Okay, and I have that moon right here. Stamped out. I don't even know if we'll be able to see this moon now I look at it. Yeah, it's a little bit. You almost can't even see it in there. You see that little thing going across there, and there's a little bit of that texturing to it. Okay, I'm going to stamp this one upside down like this in here. I'm not going to blot it off because I think, yeah, what happens right here is I took my time to blot off like that and the time it dried. So this is what that moon looks like down here. I'm not going to just restamp it right over the top of that because it's barely visible, but I'm just going to leave it like that. But see how that's pretty cool in there. It's kind of a nice moody type of scene right here. blue foil or something like that would look really cool. The Stardream, this stuff dries pretty fast on here because the Stardream is a porous surface, unlike like a foil like this. But this one would be more reflective and I think potentially dynamic. This has its own spirit to it. It's, like a softer look though. But if you want to go for impact, you might try it on a foil or something like that. But that Stardream, the Brilliance ink on here, you would just have to spray seal when you're done. Okay, so let's add in some foreground on this one. Okay, so we just did our main imagery, our sky imagery. I don't know, it's kind of interesting that when you do reflections like that, something that represents something so far in the distance is also reflected down here, and it represents foreground, right? So you have something the ultimate distance, and something the closest distance until we do, these fronds down here like this. They're kind of obscure because they're in a dark area again, but oh, they frame off that bottom, the bottom left and right corners here. Okay. And okay, here's other thing too. If you want to make that area down there lighter, allow the ink to dry a little bit, the white ink, and then apply more over the top of it. Okay, I'm not going to take the time to do that, but if you want to increase your contrast. Okay, here we go like this, a little rowboat down below, like so. And you have your scene. This would be really good with, if you did a quote stamp up here, I'd probably use something like that stays on white pigment ink or something like that up here for it to look opaque enough over the top of this. But, word stamps in here would look really nice in white. So it's reverse lettering on here. But there it is in, whatever, white on dark, and this one is, dark on white. It's not a super dark blue, but, you see the difference right there. So really different spirits here. And I would add in, if I was doing this, I would add in some extra tone up here. I'd add in some shadows underneath here with black ink just to increase the contrast and whatnot. But just as foundations, again, what I did on here isn't too much farther away from what I did on here on just a white piece of paper. I just added in that extra white ink, but the impressions and everything like that are still the same type of thing. Okay. All right, let's see here. Let's go in with, let's do a sunset type of thing. People really like sunsets, and I'm going all with cool imagery in here. Let's see. Gosh, I don't want to. Do I want to do it on this one? I have this huge scene right here. Let's do another composition, but let's add in the sun, but let's do it in a warm tone here. Let's see here. Sorry, I haven't been reading right here. Let's see. Yeah, Jeannie can't do simple stamping. Kevin is having fun tonight. Don't I have fun every time I stamp, Jeannie? Maybe not always. In certain portions of the scene, like that foil the other day. I was really sweating it until it came out. That one almost defeated me. I didn't know if it would work or not. It was like a roller coaster ride. It was a roller coaster of emotion, which ended up being a more exhilarating type of experience in some ways that I haven't experienced before in a long time, at least in stamping. Yeah. Perspective. Paulette likes that perspective right there. Outback Dunny, that has to be stamped in the foreground as my trees. Back boys, fences, etc. are tiny. Always makes me laugh when I use it. Can't find my black stays on. Where'd it go, Phyllis? Huh. I need some other StazOn inks. Like I wish I had an orange StazOn for this. Okay, let's get stamping right here. Let's see. Linda used 25 stamps. Okay, that's quite a lot there. Let's use this one and this one here. Let's see if I can use both sides of this block. Is that StazOn completely dry? It is. I'm usually going like this, and there's no way I'd do that with a dye-based ink, so I'd have ink all over my hand. I don't know how many stamps I used on my large pieces, but it was, I don't know if it was 25. That's, I think that's more than what I used on those 11 by 17. I've done an 11 by 17 where I really didn't use too many stamps at all, but I just repeated some of the imagery just over and over and over again. And that would, I need to be able to see this. Okay, let's go with a little bit more sky on this one. Let's say we're going with a sunset. Okay, so let's do portrait, and then let me stamp this lower on the composition just for kicks, so we can get more sky types of coloring. And I'll really show you kind of doing that that streaking type of exercise in there. Yeah, Stardreams are. Oh, keep in mind one of the things that I found with Stardream, I did that again. I didn't stamp that area down there. Hopefully watching this too, when I do these things and I miss my impressions and stuff like that, hopefully that you'll see too that for me, when I'm doing that, it doesn't really matter. Now, if I miss 50% of the stamp, that's not going to be good. But these little areas like this down here, by the time you add in your colors and things like that, it doesn't even matter. So I don't sweat that type of what I would consider the small stuff at all. Okay. All right, let me just add in some palm fronds like this. Let's say there's some trees on the side like that. I'll just kind of fill in like that. A lot of people think these fronds are feathers. If you see feathers, then that's what they can be for you. There's like this prehistoric bird on the side. It's plumage. Okay, and like that right there. That looks really crazy. It looks like we're hiding or something like that in the foliage, doesn't it? I'm not gonna put this in the background right here. Let's just do all kind of sky or something like that. Or let's see. I'm trying to think if I want to do that sun in here. Okay, I said I would, so let's do that right here. Okay. The only thing that I'm a little bit reluctant about is if this isn't completely dry here. I tell you what, let me do this in a kind of a medium tone brown. A lot of times in my sunsets, what I like to use is a brown. Otherwise, things look a little bit too kind of hot in scenes, so brown tends to mellow it out if I'm using yellows, oranges, reds, magentas, and whatnot. Okay. So go like this. Let's put this sun, in this case, a little bit lower on the horizon, okay? So what I'm going to do is if I stamp this out over the top of my trees, these trees are solid, so you don't need to mask anything out. But if I stamp it lower, lower than these hut rooftops right here, then I'm going to have to mask it off. In which case I would just go like this, okay? But that's your masking that you would do. And you would just stamp this like that. But I'm not going to stamp it so low because I don't think we'd even be able to see it. So I'll have this kind of sun kind of peeking out from over the top of these trees right here. Maybe we'll go a little bit off center. So see that when I color this in here and all these warm tones, I'm just going to be careful not to completely eradicate the lightness of that sun right there because I want that sun to be my light source. I might get a little bit of yellow into it, but I don't want to get it so yellow that it's darker than the lightest objects or other areas in the scene. And we'll do that thing too, where we're having some light reflecting off some of this water down here as well. Okay. Chances are, if that sun was right here, that this would all be in shadow right here. But, this is artistic license where we want a little bit of variety down here. Okay. My voice is cracking. Let me get some water right here. All right, so dye-based inks. Okay, here's my applicator and masking material. Go with whatever brand of inks you have. Stampin' Up, Distress inks, whatever. Okay, but just line them up in kind of a range of tones. Here, I'll mix it up a little bit with some Memento just to get a little bit of variety in here. And again, this is like supposed to be a compositional video, but it's good to see things in format. Like if I just did this, it would look weird as far as composition goes, so it might not make sense, to people. Again, that haven't done scenic stamping before. It's like, well, wait a minute, this, that looks really bad. As far as a finished card goes, but it's not a finished card. It's just, your foundation, your colors are going to be adding in here. So, just lining up your tones, going from light to dark like this. Let's move into, how about some reds and, I don't know, deeper reds like this. And it looks something like this. Okay. And this one probably goes right here, right? This one almost looks like it's lighter than the brown. It really isn't, though. This brown is lighter than this one right here. But you just line them up going from light to dark in whatever color scheme you're working with. If you're doing it in colored pencils, I do the same thing with colored pencils. In fact, I showed them that yesterday, just lining them up from light to dark. And you're starting with your lightest and working through into your darker tones, okay? All right, so there's that right there. All right. There's my applicator. Some people talk about the texturing on paper towels or something like that, and they say, hey, I can't use paper towels because it's patterned, and I always get the pattern on here. Well, to get your pattern off, you just go like this, and it flattens it out. So, just do that really quick, and it'll take care of it all, okay? All right, so on here, let's see, get a really good dollop of that going. That might be too much. Not really. Not for like a sunset type of thing like this. Okay, so I'm really going to fill in quite a bit with this, but be careful about your light source again, okay? So see this? So I'm making my shorter little swatch like that because I have my sun here, S-U-N. Okay. And I do want to get some of this tone in there. I don't want it just anemic white or something like that. Okay, here we go with our reflected area. Now in sunset types of situations where there's a lot of brilliant light, you're not going to get a lot of other colors in a certain area. So this is going to go kind of more, monochromatic. The colors of the sky are going to be reflecting off the water. So you wouldn't have like blue water in this type of colored lighting scenario here. So colors of the sky repeated down in here. And let's see. So like this right here. And then we have that little reflected light area right there. See that lighting? And see this right here? I didn't color in all of my rooftops right here. So you already have your lighting kind of lighting scheme established right here, okay? But here's the trick though. People always got this in my classes and my workshops, okay, when they're first color. But when you get through into these darker tones, okay, that's when a lot of times they eradicated their lighting. It's because they go in, just as far with the darker tones as they do with the lighter tones like this, okay? So again, this is the same concept. If you're working with pastels or something like that, you just wouldn't be doing it on glossy cardstock. You'd be doing it on like matte, cardstock or something like that. Well, Jeannie, you used to do like you went through your whole kind of kind of modern art type of you know, um, usage of scenic stamp elements, doing those different types of patterns and things like that with them. People would have to go. I can't even describe what Jeannie was doing at one point in time with her pieces. They were, I don't know how, well, I don't know. You're right here. How would you describe them? It's those ones where you did like patterning with them. And they would be like 2 or 3 stamps used, but in repetition and in like these um, I don't know what you would call it. It was almost the patterning was almost like Zentangle type of things before Zentangle was out there. But there's a bunch of those images up in Jeannie's gallery on the Stampscapes website. Okay, so this is using the next color of yellow right here, this golden yellow. Okay. And now what I'm doing is I'm kind of making things a little bit streakier up here. I might not use it to the same extent as I did with the first color. I don't know, there's a lot of this one in there, but let's go through this really fast again because this is not a coloring video here, but just to show people kind of, some basic structuring. But again, yeah, it just didn't make sense just to do just the stamp sketches alone without some coloring on here. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm shortening my stroke now with the darker tones. Now I'm still working with a fairly light tone right here in the ochre, I think it is. So going like that. If you're doing it with your pastels, do the same type of thing. Watercolors, some people do watercolor types of things, but see this right here? I'm still retaining that light area right here. So I'm really staying with the same, basic foundation that I started with. Okay, here comes this red right here. This red is so... It's a big jump in value. Let me add in this intermediate tone in here instead, okay? Before I get to that red. How thick is your padding below your base? I just added to it, Phyllis. I had like some remaining copy paper, so I added, I don't know, I like doubled up on it right here. So I don't know. I went, sometimes I put like 20 sheets in there just because, I don't want to have to go, it's going to take me, 10 seconds to go get some more paper, and I'm too lazy to do that. It's going to take me 5 seconds to turn around and grab some more off the shelf, so I just like add in 20 sheets so I don't have to do it again for, weeks or a month or something like that. Okay, so that's fairly dark right there, right? But, okay, oh, here. So do you see my kind of streak type of thing like that? See, it's gone like that. Okay, but here, try not to eradicate your lighting in here, especially your light source in this case. Now, if I did it, this scene would look really cool without that sun in there as well. You can just have these streaks going all the way down here. It can just be this, the sun has gone below the horizon and you're kind of moving more towards twilight or something like that, okay? At this point in time, I try to integrate some of these streaks into my background like that. I don't want things so smoothly applied. A lot of times there is kind of this, I don't know, there's this value out there that has come into stamping at some point in time where it's like texture equates to bad applications or bad media, okay? And I do like kind of smooth applications of certain types of things, but I don't want to do it at the expense of all texture, okay? I don't know, texture is a pretty important part of art, and visuals, okay? And so like, you know, like colored pencils. What is that thing they do with colored pencils to kind of just blend it out so you kind of eradicate any kind of, you know, colored pencil look with it, you know? I think that's good to do, but I would also have some of the colored pencil texturing in there because I think that's what makes it special. And things like Copic markers and things like that, alcohol markers, sometimes there's like, okay, does it look absolutely smooth and machine, you know, applied? Does it look like it has been done by like a machine as opposed to by hand, you know? And I find that, you know, the charm of handmade cards is that you have some of these textures going on in here that look like the hand of, you know, who's created it. And I know people are saying, well, if it's a good texture, then it's good, but if it's a bad looking one. But what you do is you just kind of add that in there and you just kind of keep blending it around. It doesn't necessarily look great sometimes, but you just kind of add some more. And, you know, you get that nice coloring and, you know, the striations in here. Yeah, embrace the textures, okay? And okay, but that being said, if you get some textures that you don't like, okay, it's like, oh my God, it's like way too harsh, okay? Don't necessarily just try to blend it out with the color that you're using. Go back with your lighter colors, okay, and add more of those over the top of that to blend in some sort of kind of obtrusive, unintentional, undesirable mark or whatnot. But do you see this area right in here where it's getting a lot brighter looking? Or lighter looking, not brighter. I guess it's brighter too. It's getting a little bit more intense down here, but we still have this little reflected area right here that's standing out even more so because we've made the area around it a little bit darker. So you control your kind of relative amount of, I don't know, perceived light through the use of darkness, okay? For me, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking maybe that's a little bit too white. So I might add in a little bit, go back in with like the lightest of yellow and then add some more of that in there, like a dry application of it. Okay, so here's brown, okay? Brown, it doesn't do a whole lot when we have all these other values already laid down here. If you don't have like a Marvy brown, there's so many different browns in the Distress ink line. If you have, oh, like walnut or something like that, walnut would be fantastic in here. It would give it kind of a more of an aged, kind of mellow look to it. And I don't know, my walnut's completely dry and I don't have a re-inker for it, so I'm not using that. But you know, you can just, I don't know, just build things up. You can transition your colors into purple tones, whatever. Here's a red right here. This one's getting pretty dark right here. Here's a cherry red, okay? Let's see. The Marvy Color Tower, yeah. When I used to teach workshops, you know, sometimes I'd have as many as 20 people in a workshop or something like that. So I'd have like 3 stacks of like 8 different, you know, pads in front of everyone. Everyone had their own, you know, kind of Marvy colors to work with. So it was always a very colorful workshop. Okay, so here's the red right here. I like to go a little bit darker on my corners like that. So that's where I'm usually starting it off, okay? But if I like that little area of light right up here, right, it's not a sun or something like that, then just kind of work around it like this, okay? Sometimes I go for a little bit more of a narrow application and I stay here longer, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm doing this. And then see, that gets a little bit wider there, so you get that kind of transitioning tone like that. Hello, Alicia. Gamsol, thank you. All the answers are always in these live streams. Someone always knows some answer that, you know, that answer that we're looking for on these pieces. Crafting or non-crafting things. I think we were talking about Northern Lights or something like that, and someone knew, I don't know, a lot of the technical, you know, aspects of that. Glow-in-the-dark things, how glow-in-the-dark things worked. I think they were like a science teacher or something like that. This is months ago. Okay, but anyways, see this, what was it again? Cherry? Yeah, cherry. That. This pad right here is completely sunken in like that. I don't know if you can see this, but it's completely smashed down. You can't use it for impressions anymore, but it's, you know, it's perfectly adequate for that, you know. Like that, okay, so anyway. Like so. Let's go on. Let's see. Do I have here is my dark brown. Sometimes when you get this amount of ink on here, on this applicator, it's getting kind of super saturated. So if I apply some ink, I mean, it depends if that ink pad is really wet. This is brown as opposed to black. I had to check, that looks really dark. If it's really super juicy, then you'll get some of that brown. But see how that, I don't know, it's a little bit different right here. And if you want to build it up, because this is getting super saturated with ink, so if I wipe like that, you notice how, if I add it down like that, you can see how much ink is on here like that, okay? But it's so wet and super saturated into the pulp that if I just wipe it like that, it's like I'm wiping it right off like that, okay? So if you want to apply at some point in time, you have to kind of dab like that and kind of move it around. You can move it around a little bit like that, but you have to kind of change your touch if you want to apply, because when you're dabbing it down like this, what you're doing is you're building up these little micro beads of that ink on the surface like that, as opposed to kind of wiping into it like that, okay? All right, but see how that brown, see how those browns kind of, they make it look a little bit richer, but it's just kind of mellowing out the hotness of that intensity of all those inks in there. All right, so let's see, let's try to blend in some of this imagery down at the base as well. Some things are not, you know, this paper towel, again, is not designed for, you know, kind of your more detailed areas. So with something like this, we can go into, I just thought of something right up here. I think that would be a great spot for a word stamp of some sort. Okay, so that was kind of extreme. That was going into something that I wasn't going to. But like I said, I can't resist when I'm doing some of these stamp sketch videos. I don't know. That wasn't, we didn't use too much ink on there, did we? But, you know, again, you know, this is not, you know, something so fine-tuned as something like this. So if I want to go in here, like on these, oh yeah, I stamped this out in Stays On, so that was kind of, that's smearing around my ink a little bit like that. Let me see here. These don't work great on here, but here's some colored pencils, okay? So you can get a little bit of layering of colored pencil. The Prismacolors are really soft. Let me see if you can show it here. But let's go on the sides of these huts a little bit. Here, I'm just using black so you can see it a little bit more. But see that? I'm going underneath the eaves right in there to make that rooftop seem a little bit more, or the structure's a little bit more three-dimensional. Let me see if I can get a little brown on that thatched roof. I don't know if I can. Certain colors are a little bit softer than others. Let's try this one right here. This is Burnt Umber. Let me see if I can get a little bit of this on this glossy cardstock. Not the most ideal medium on here, but you can get a little bit of layering on here. So see if I made that rooftop a little bit darker right here. This one stands out a little bit more by contrast, and I can transition this from a little bit of a darker tone down here and have it lighter up here. So we have this thing, where we're doing this dark to light. You can even do it in the smallest of areas down here, going from a little bit darker. It's not black or anything like that. I'm using a black, thing right here, but see this right little transition like that? And I see, I smeared that in there, but right back in here, you can kind of add a little bit of tone back in here. So it just creates a little bit of separation between this roof and this roof right here. This one right here, you can do, a little bit of tone like this if you want to, or something like that. Down here, just keep in mind if you're going to stamp out anything else in these spaces with dye-based ink, do it before you apply your waxy applications of colored pencil, whatever, pigment. Thanks, Joyce. Glad it's fun watching there. Oh, your northern lights are supposed to be amazing there tonight, huh? Do a live stream, Alicia, for us. Is there a specific time of night, that's better? Or is it just when it gets dark, they can happen at any time, the northern lights? Are they more present at, like, say, 11 p.m. than, 3 a.m. or something like that? Okay, let's go with a little bit of this little character down here, just because he's in the set. So I'm kind of showing people how to maximize their set. But see that little character down here? Isn't it like a little perfect spot for like a little spotlight on a character? It's like when you're doing these things like that, and when you retain an area of light like that, it kind of creates a little bit of a stage for those characters. It's oftentimes it's like a deer or something like that. And like I said, like a word stamp too could be really good. I'm looking at this too. Let's see. Let's add a little bit of a heavier tone up at the surface, up at the top like that. This is using black, okay? Using black is a little bit, it can be challenging if your tones that already exist here are a lot lighter than the color that you're going to be going into. It's not just for black, but it's like if I jump to, this is why I had people do this too. I know this is like going completely off the subject matter here, but of compositions. But let's say if I wanted to go from like this is the dark brown, that's not black right there. Let's see if you do that, there's a really big jump in contrast right here. So if you're layering this color over the top of those colors like that, there's going to be a pretty big jump. So kind of just the ease of applying like a little bit of a darker color in terms of your blending ease, okay? It's just easier to go into, these intermediate colors before you get to this darker one. See how there's much more of a transition like that. So making things visual like that really helps in terms of the process, okay? Okay, so that being said, any ink that you go with, though, if it's really dark and if it's a really big jump in value, all you need to do is just take some of that ink off and make it a drier, lighter application of whatever ink it is. So let's go in here like this. And I'll show you how easy it is, but just don't go in with like a super dark, application of that ink. But see that right there? That's black. It doesn't look black because it's like a light gray over the top of that, but look how it kind of frames the scene off a little bit more. Oftentimes what I do is I come in with the little black on the sides like that. And see, it's just like wiping it in like that. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this. This is what it looks like on a white piece of paper like that, okay? And again, it's not like this in the corner. A lot of times people get that, but when they get to the black, it's like going like this, and there's this solid band of really dark black like that. But so you can transition it a little bit more. See, I'm going on with the like tiny corner of the page like that, and then you just kind of blend it in like that. So just a little bit. I mean, you can add a lot more if it's like a darker scene, it's a moonlit scene, you're going in, farther with the black. But you can just start off really, light like that. Okay, but let's go on the four corners, and you can see how this four corner kind of vignetting, framing contains the imagery or the composition a lot more like that, especially if you've stamped out your imagery in black. Which isn't always the case, sometimes you're doing, a sunset type of scene or something like that, and if there's mountains in there, you might stamp out your mountains in, I don't know, Purple Mountain's Majesty and purple or something like that, and browns or various tones like that to represent, more distant objects. But see a little black, what that did in there? It really framed things off. We really need a quote stamp or something like that in the sky. I'm not going to stamp my birds up here because I want to do something like a quote stamp here, like, whatever the nature, where's the color of the spirit or something like that. That would be a perfect one for this scene right here. But let's see. Do you go live certain days or times? No. It's not really when I feel like it, Kay. It's when I can get to it, though. I don't know if I need a new camera, if it's a new lens, but yeah, I don't know. It just won't zoom in. It just gets, I don't know, it's going haywire or something like that. Everyone hit the like button, It'll spread the word on these lives a little bit more. Let's see. But yeah, I don't know. I've been jumping on when I can. I've been really busy, so there hasn't been like a specific time that I've been going live. But I try to mix it up a little bit. Like I don't know, when was it? Like a couple days ago, I was like at midnight my time. So I don't know. Were you on at that time? I can't remember which videos people were on. No, last night. God, was it last night? I guess it was last night I was on like at around midnight because I finally got done with everything and I was able to jump on live here. But yeah, I don't know, whatever, subscribe and hit your notification bell so that when I go live at 4 a.m. your time, you can jump on. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, so you know how I'm doing these streaks here too? This type of thing? If I'm doing it on this cardstock like this, or I did it on the thing like this, instead of going horizontal, across like this, okay, I'm going, well, this is an extreme example like this, but you see these kind of things like this, these pillars of light like that. I'm streaking down like this, okay? So you get these kind of, if this was like a reddish, northern light or something like that, a little bit more rare, you would come down like this and you'd have your objects going that way. So it's the same type of thing. Like I said, these types of things like this that I'm doing on here, you can even see on my blotter paper right here exactly what's been going on. You can see me, I'm going like streaking like this, and there's all these streaks in here. I mean, sometimes I'm dabbing a little bit like that, but for the most part, you see all these streaks everywhere, right? It's because I'm doing the same type of thing, and that's the same type of thing, like I said, that I'm doing with colored pencils. Here's black like this, okay? And you're just creating this transitioning type of tone like that. If there's a rock like this, I'm transitioning this up from the base of the rock, to the top of it. So you have this more rounded type of look to your objects, where it's like capturing some light up above like that, okay? I mean, you can see my hand right here, my weathered, hand right here, where it's darker down here, it's lighter up here. It's the same thing going on like this. So there's always transitions, or something like that. You can put your hand, well, maybe not my hand. Well, there's just transitioning ink tones like that from dark to light here, or something like that. But you see these transitions everywhere. The higher types of surfaces like this are a little bit lighter, and the darker ones are lower because the lighting is coming from up above, right? So you can see it everywhere like that. The highest points are usually the lighter points like that. Now, it just depends on, what type of surface you have, but Here's these pads like in a stamp pad like here, darker on the sides, lighter on the top like that, if it's being top lit. So that's what you're kind of doing on these things like this. And, it can be really easy. You can just make it darker on the sides, lighter in the middle like this, and just work around your light sources if there are any light sources in there, okay? All right, so anyway, let's do another composition on here. I think people get or hopefully, people got the idea of kind of composition in these pieces right here. But let's do something with this crazy, crazy paper right here. When we look at something like this, we're not thinking probably tropical. I wasn't even thinking of stamping on something like this, using it at all. I'm not on Twitch, no. I've heard of Twitch. I don't even know what Twitch is, though. I've heard of it, though. I don't know. Is that another thing like TikTok or something like that, where video posts, or is it all live, or what? Okay, let's do something like this, okay? And, okay, now this one, let's see. Let's make this one. This is all going to be sky up here. Let's have this area down here as water. You're thinking, wait, what do you mean water? That's not going to be water. There's no way that's going to be water, right? I don't know. When I think about it too myself, I'm thinking, is that going to be? But I don't know. It's worked pretty well in the past. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's do okay, so let's do this composition again. All right. But let's, we'll take the moon out of the equation because we already, it could be up there, but let's just keep this area up here for, these holographic starry effects, okay? But now, if I'm going to have water down here, you can have a little bit of that water showing through, but I'm going to have this as just, I don't know, like a flatter surface, okay? Maybe it'll be reflecting some of those stars up there. But, okay, let's go back to white right here. But hopefully, when I'm going through all this, if people are new to it, you'll see the relationship between all of these different types of surfaces. It doesn't change the basic idea in terms of composition, okay? You just stamp out your imagery, based around what is going to be the focal point of the scene. Is it going to, in this case of the nature set number 11, is it going to be, I doubt it's going to be based around these palm fronds here, which are foregrounds. It's probably going to be one of these two types of things, but you're going to stamp that first, and build your scenes around it when you get to that. Now on this one right here, I'm just adding in a little bit of an extra process, just like I did with this one right here, in terms of establishing that lighting in a dark format, okay? But on this one, you're just establishing it on a, an insane format, of this holographic, starry, printable vinyl, okay? All right, so this is going to be water down here. What was the composition I was going to do again? This one right here, right? Okay, so let's go with this. All right. Going on with my brilliance white right here. I normally don't tell people what I think they should go with in terms of brands of inks or something like that, but when it comes to this one right here, I just really, really recommend the Brilliance because it's the only brand and type of ink of its kind out there. It's a water-based pigment ink. It might be a little bit harder to find these days. You can still find it online for sale. Imagine Crafts is the retail distributor for it here in the US, so you can get it from their site. But it's on various sites. Not as common as it used to be, though, unfortunately. So, okay, so this is your white ink, but it blends or it adheres to this printable vinyl. And it's not just a vinyl. It's not just a holographic cardstock. Okay, it's a printable vinyl. Okay, but you can do this on those other cardstocks, like foils and whatnot. You just have to spray seal it afterwards. On this, you don't even have to spray seal it. It's really nuts. I didn't think it would work, to tell you the truth, but I don't know. It worked like incredibly, because if you can add, who would think that you can use colored pencil on that? I mean, colored pencils barely work on like glossy cardstock. There's no tooth to it, but adding this white pigment ink like this down on the surface like this. Okay, so this is going to be the water area down here. It feels like, like copy paper or something like that when this sets up and dries on here, and it dries on its own because this paper right here, this printable vinyl, it's designed for your whatever, your inkjet inks to dry on there quickly. So for a quick drying pigment ink like this, it's designed to dry. It handles that like piece of cake, okay? But like I said, I wasn't doing it on this type of paper at all until, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. I was usually using, I don't know, your holographic cardstocks and whatnot, very non-porous, okay? But, and that worked really good too. I'm not going to do that tonight, but I know you can see there's tons of videos on that. But okay, so this has been laid down like that. I know it does, I know it looks insane right now. Or it doesn't look like anything at all, maybe. Is what it looks like. But go like that, and that is that. Let's see if this is dry yet. It's not quite dry yet, but I added a big slathering of it down on there, and it is, when I go like that, it's not like I have a bunch of white paint all over my fingertips like that, okay? So it dries pretty quickly, on this surface. Okay, so let's go on with our imagery. I think I did a test on this. I used, is this the one? Yeah, this is the one right here. Now, I should have labeled this right here, but this one was the dye-based ink. This one was, I think, the Brilliance. I can't even remember now. And this one, I think, was the Stays-On ink on top of this same printable vinyl, okay? And they all look pretty good on this. This one was the Brilliance Black, I think. Okay, so you can use pretty much anything you want on here without any problem. But in some ways, you're stamping not on this surface like this, if you're stamping it over that white ink right there, okay? So keep that in mind. But dye-based ink's no problem. Okay, that really stuck like that. I think I already need to re-ink this one right here. Okay, here's the thing about the printable vinyl. You had to work faster. I didn't lift that off fast enough. Okay, that was much better. See, that's a much deeper, darker impression like that. So this lighter impression, that's an island that's farther off in the distance, and I meant to do that. Okay, let's add in, I need something else in here. Let's go with the larger kind of foreground element in here in the form of this larger frond coming in from the sides like so. Okay, and oh, the angle's a little bit weird on this, kind of not bending to the, what is it, the right, but oh well. Okay, so a little bit of a formatting like that, This is the type of paper, if you're going to stamp something for some kid, I would use this type of paper, like especially young kids. Well, I don't know. Could be anyone. people that are kids at heart, like all of us, right, that stamp, that still play with inks and everything like that. Okay, so I know this doesn't look like water down here, like at all right now, but I'm going to add the colored pencils down there. I might add some other things like some little bit of texturing in there as well, but okay, let's go like that. Okay. I think it's birds, but this would be a perfect place for a quote as well. I'm not sure what to do with the quotes up there, you know, because that's such a busy background though sometimes. I'm not sure if I should do the quote in black or if I should do it in like a white ink, or if I'm going to have to stamp it on something else and have this other kind of raised thing that I've stamped it on and kind of paste it down in there, you know, where it's like hovering above the background, because, you know, depending on what angle you have that, like if I stamp something in white, I don't know if it's going to show up like in that color right there. It'll show up in that right there. That's really dark, but I don't know. You can have some disappearing ink. Maybe you stamp something in black and stamp something in white, where sometimes one thing shows up and the other one shows up in the darkness. Okay, so same thing, same concept right here. I don't know if this is going to come out at all. Maybe I should have added in like a horizon that was a little bit straighter. I guess I still can. Let's do that right here. This will just take a second right here. This is kind of weird having this kind of raised up. Unless, let me see here. I might make my life easier and just stamp out this in the background right up here. Like about like so, and have another layer of trees right back in here. What I was going to do is I was going to add in just a horizon, just a straight horizon for that. But I think I'm going to go with this right here. My stays, oh, take that off right here. I need to do that technique where I glue this down or whatever on the back of this thing. That would just take I don't know, like a couple seconds to do, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Someone told me to do that watching one of the replays of one of these videos. It's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, because I keep losing this plastic covering right here as I'm working on these pieces when I'm doing the stays on. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, so much. Oh, you know what happens? When you hold this down longer like that, it dries on the surface right here, so you're peeling off a lot of the ink. So the longer you hold it down, sometimes you get a lighter impression like that. But anyways, I don't know, more distant objects. Okay, so transitioning tones using your blue tones like this. Okay, and I'll go on. With the colored pencils, you don't have to necessarily go from, you know, your lighter tones to your darker ones. And just like with inks, if you can't tell which one is darker than the other one in terms of value, then it doesn't really matter. But it doesn't really matter on this either. But I'll show you how much fun this can be on here. So, I don't know, kind of roughly the same composition or similar compositions like this. Different type of surface completely. And okay, so we're going to do this thing where we have it would be more like this right here, these transitioning tones going from the outside edge in with a lighter area down in here, okay? Or try to. All right, so this is blue. I'm just going really lightly with it. I don't know if you can tell, tell that, yeah, you can see a little bit of blue tinge right here. But one of the things, like I said, I was really shocked that this Brilliance pigment ink that's laying on the surface of this, seemingly metallic looking cardstock-like surface would stick, but it does. And like I said, it feels like I'm working on like a piece of copy paper or something like that. You can add in a thicker layer too of that white pigment ink on down there if you want to. The thinner it is, the thinner the application, the more translucent it's going to be, and you'll probably get some of those stars showing through this area down here, which I don't think is bad because it's supposed to be reflective water, so you get a little bit of that shininess kind of showing through. Whether or not it'll show up by the time I get, to the darker tones, I don't know. So this is what I'm doing right here. I'm kind of going like this, and I'm getting this transitioning tone like right through here, okay? And I'll kind of create these little bit of striations in here as well. I've used colored pencils more, I think, in the last couple months than I have in like 20 years. But this one right here, this printable vinyl, this for me, I mean, I like colored pencils and everything like that, like on this scene, I mean, it was nice to be able to go in and add in all kinds of various shades and everything like that in here. There's like 7 layers of colored pencil on top of that, that semi-gloss cardstock. But this one is the one that I think these colored pencils really shine because it's such... These soft applications of colored pencils, colored pencils tend to look really mellow and soft, and there's a lot of, I don't know, textural, softness. I don't know another way to kind of describe them, but contrasting against this super busy, area up there like that, these things look really good, I think. It really brings out, by contrast, the character of the medium and the surface like that. I don't know, it's just so crazy of a surface. Okay, let me see. I think I used those two so far. Going with a little bit of this grayish blue, which doesn't show up at all. Nah, I guess it does a little bit. Let's see. Is Moonlight White, it is the Moonlight White ink pad, yes. Yeah. And there's probably a little bit of shimmer to it, like there is with most of the Brilliance pads. Hello, Karen. Did you just, whoever joined in, if anyone's joined in, and checking out this right here, thanks for joining in. Adding in a little bit of shading to this as well, okay. So this is kind of darkening this area right here, right? So I'm going for that same type of thing like this, but I'll transition this from darker right here to lighter down here. So you just go with a little bit of a lighter touch like this. And you can transition. We're going for those kind of striations in here. I haven't tried like pastels at all. Like I don't have a collection of, I do have some soft pastels from like my school days. I don't know what they were, whatever brand there were, 20 years ago. But I just have a few colors of those stick pastels, but I don't have like pan pastels, but I think pan pastels might have a chance of working on this surface. So you can go with some of that as well. Or instead of, colored pencils. I think that would be, if they work on this surface like this, like I said, it's almost like working on a piece of copy paper or something like that. That can be a really, really dynamic medium for this printable holographic type of paper. It doesn't have to be the holographic one or the starry one. There's different types of printable vinyls out there, okay? I think there's like white printable vinyl as well. I don't know how we would use that though, as opposed to something else. It seems like if we're going to go with something like this, we might as well go with something that's a little bit different than, the papers that we would be using. Okay. But anyways, you see those little tones starting to come into play here. I think, let's go with a little bit more striations in here. This one would look probably pretty good with the water pattern stamp in here. That's not in this set, but since it doesn't have it, I'm going for some of these streaks like this, like that, getting that texture in there to look more kind of water-like maybe. But here's this thing. I mean, here's this exact same thing in here. Here's this thing going from transitioning from darker to lighter in here, a little bit of an illuminated area. You know, when we're working with colored pencils, we can kind of go a little bit more, you know, closer to our objects or give, you know, those other types of little, you know, textures and whatnot that might be indicative of kind of a water pattern like that. And you add darker ones in the darker areas like that, okay? All right, ultramarine here. This ultramarine's probably a little bit closer to that color right there. But okay, if you just joined in, here's those other colors in here. This is why you use this color if you're going for this type of effect in here. See, you see a little bit of that shiny down below, which is kind of good in that water area like that. But let's go with a little bit of a darker tone, or a, let's see how this affects it. Yeah, it's not too much darker. I'm not going like this with it, though. These colored pencils layer on here pretty well. I mean, I haven't like gouged into that, though, because I'm not sure, you know, if I do that, if that white will remain on there. But you don't have to be delicate at all, you know. See, if you're doing this on foils, you know, that white would just scratch right off of the surface right here, but this is the printable vinyl, so it's going on there pretty, you know. It's adhering enough to where I'm just not really even thinking about, you know, the characteristics of this type of surface at all anymore. I'm just, you know, these pencils are going there as easy as a piece of paper, a piece of matte, like copy paper or something like that. It doesn't feel like I'm coloring on, you know, like a really nice piece of, you know, Bristol board or something like that. It feels like I said, it feels like a piece of cheap copy paper, okay? But that's good enough for me, you know, as far as this goes. It's not really textured at all. But I'm not a colored pencil artist or anything like that where I need, you know, that really cool textural, you know, kind of foundation for my pencils. Okay, let's go with black too. I need to sharpen these pencils one of these days. They're getting really stubby. Sometimes people ask me, what do you sharpen your pencils with? I just use a, you know, just standard plain electric pencil sharpener. All right, so adding in some additional tones, and remember like what I said about this piece right here, a little bit of a vignette up here. I'm not gonna go with a vignette up here, but what I'm doing is I'm just darkening this area down here, and I'll kind of blot off this, you know, block off this area like this a little bit more, and close off that bottom portion. This could really use some kind of foreground imagery in here, so I'm going to add in some foreground imagery in this one, because I've invested time into this one right here, this scene. All right, so that is going on like that. All right, so see these, we've anchored off our kind of little islands a little bit here again. Here, this looks like this. Okay. All right, now here's the thing that really kind of brings this together for me a lot more. We've added the white pigment ink as a base down here, right? Then we've added our imagery over the top of it, our compositional elements, and then we've colored on here. But I'm going to take this cotton ball again, and I'm going to add in some additional white pigment ink over the top of this now. Let's see, is the vinyl in the Cricut aisle at the store? Does anyone know the answer to that? I'm not into cricket. I'm guessing it should be. There's a lot of different. There's a whole lot of vinyls. Like Linda mistakenly got the. What did you get, Linda? It's cold um, laminate vinyl. Okay, that looked starry like that, but she's coming up with some amazing usages for that. You just stamp out a scene on whatever on different pages, and you're putting that type of thing over that. But just be aware of the vinyl cards. I mean the holographic cardstock, the holographic cold laminate like sticker sheet, and then there's the vinyl holographic printable sticker paper. Okay, there's so many things going on. It's like my brain's too little to hold all of these new types of surfaces that are out there these days that we happen to be like utilizing and employing in these scenes now. Um, I can't retain, or it's like I'm just barely retaining all these different types of things out there. Okay, so here's the white pigment ink again. So it's used at the base, all the imagery over the top of it, but then I'm going to use that again over the top of it. And this is, again, where the Brilliance ink is pretty good because the Brilliance inks kind of are designed to be able to be used on non-porous surfaces. So here we're applying it over the wax, of the colored pencils here. So yeah. Try that. Try those pastels on there, Linda, and see if that sticks. Tell you what does not work. Holographic wrapping paper. Oh, well, the holographic wrapping paper. I'm guessing would that. Okay, now see, I'm kind of adding that little foggy kind of mist right down there. I imagine what I imagined the holographic wrapping vinyl to be similar to, in terms of the porous quality of it, are the foils. Okay, but I just see them as flexible foils. But yeah, would be able to apply like any white pigment ink over the top of it at all? That's a good question. Or is it just beating up on there? I don't know. What happened? What happened on there, Phyllis? But that, on something like that wrapping paper, too. I've used, yeah, like those other foils too. Man, it's hard to wrap a present in that foil because you hold it down and it's like slipping around everywhere. But you might be able to do something on there, but then spray seal it. Okay, so here I'm adding a little bit of this mist here. Okay, now normally this would dry really fast over the top of this foil. Like if I add this down there, it's going to get stuck, but I'm adding this pigment ink really over wax now. So see, if I add on too much of it like this, I can just kind of wipe it off because I'm wiping it off wax, the wax of the colored pencil, okay? So I'm adding in this misty type of effect right here, and this is where kind of I hopefully, when I'm doing these things, I eradicate my really lousy colored pencil technique, okay? Which I'm not good at or anything like that, so I try to obscure that with the use of white pigment ink, okay? I say, if something doesn't look good, I mean, I think it makes an area that looks okay better. It makes an area that looks bad okay, and it makes an area that looks good even better. So it kind of bumps everything up a little bit. So let's see this little rowboat right here. I can put a little bit of pigment ink over a little bit of that boat, and it looks like it's a little bit more. That's a little bit too much. Is a little bit in fog, just like this transitioning area right here. So it makes me look not so bad with my colored pencil technique like that. You see that right there? And see, like I said, I got my impressions weren't good. I totally missed it on a couple areas like here. So I can add a little bit of this white pigment ink. Let me see if I can even show you with this glare on here. I'm going to add a little bit of a cloud behind this Pine Island back here. Can you see where it's a little bit different right there than up here? You know, a little bit of that white. Let's add a little bit in here too. Or how about in here as well? So you can see where I didn't stamp out, all those trees up top there are really light in impression. So I'm just going to go in and let's build up a little bit of this white pigment ink and make it look a little bit cloudier up top like that, okay? And if there's like clouds like that in there, then it would just represent, you know, some kind of fog that's obscuring that area here. All right, so there's my area down here. And let's go with my StazOn, and this is what I'm going to use right in here. I haven't tried stamping on my wife's vinyl. I think she only has white vinyl. Okay, so I haven't tried doing it on that. I would imagine it would work though. I'm not sure though. But again, if I'm going to stamp on a vinyl like that, I'm not sure if I'm going to be stamping on white vinyl, I'm not sure what the benefit of stamping on the white vinyl might be from a strategic standpoint, you know, where it might be just better to use, you know, another type of cardstock or something like that if it's just going to be the white. I don't know. I'm not saying there isn't any benefits, but there might be. Okay, so a little bit of foreground right here. Okay, so we have foreground right here and foreground right here. At this angle, I'm looking at my camera, you know, your shot that you guys can see right now, but that's not so cool looking. But this is a little bit more, you know, neater looking like that. You know, when people go like this, with this type of paper right here. In terms of just visual interest, you know, when I do something on this vinyl like this, I mean, see that area down there with that colored pencil? It's roughly the same thing as this down here, but that area up top there, you know, just in terms of visual interest. Now, it's a little bit too much, you know, in some ways. It's kind of it's a little bit gimmicky, but who cares? It's kind of cool, you know. But just in terms of kind of a general surface, you know, I don't know. If you want to have an attention getter, you know, something like that would be really, you know, beneficial to start off with, because then you don't have to create all that. It's just already inherently in the paper or something like that. Then if you want to do a scene down here, it's just, you know, doing that blocking out down there with that. But you have to go with some things that are fairly solid and bold against that. Otherwise, they're not going to show up at all, like these dark, you know, type of frond leaves or something like that. That's just enough, I think, for it to show up. You know, I mean, you can put a little white behind there or something like that. Here's the star dream like this. Okay, I said I wasn't going to finish these off. I imagined I was just going to do a bunch of scenes like this, but it's like, okay, I've done more coloring than not on these scenes right here. But I mean, it didn't take too long, you know, here's 5 scenes like this, you know, using some different techniques and whatnot. Here's the Star Dream, 3 pieces of cardstock. One of them was, I don't know, matte cardstock. Here's another format like this, just on, you know, your elongated piece like that. And, you know, similar compositions, but really different looks to them, okay? And like I said, you can push depth with, you know, kind of expanding on, you know, the ratio, the size ratio of certain types of images that you can add to that. And again, I think that word stamps in, you know, a lot of these scenes would really enhance it, be it a word stamp in reverse, like white over dark or something like that, or black over white. You can even probably stamp something in here, like in gold embossing or something like that, and I think that would look really cool. If you did it in gold embossing, I would put it like right in the middle or something like that. Gold over this light yellow might not show up too much. If you want to do something in gold, maybe you would tone that in a little bit darker so that that reverse gold word stamp on here would stand out, by contrast a little bit more when it's you get that reflected light in there. So one of the things that we're going to be doing, like I said, is in that follow-up class to the Stamp Wars piece, where a lot of beginners are doing this. I'm going to do a mirror card. Now, this is not that, but see this. You can do like, have a reflection down here. I would have this down here, but you can see that when you stamp some other types of foreground in these types of mirrored scenarios, you can get some pretty cool effects like that. So I don't know. It's all fun stuff. It's all basically the same stuff. You just work your look at this. I always like when I put my hand over these things. It's like you can do like magic with these things, because it changes the surface like that. But work with, whatever media that's, is going to be conducive for the surface that you're using. So not all media is made for the same type of surface. If you want to do things on, with pastels or something like that, you're not going to use a glossy cardstock. If you want something that's needs a little bit of tooth to it, like something like, maybe like watercolor paints or pastels, colored pencils or something like that, even though I did use the colored pencils on this one right here. And, that matte that semi-gloss cardstock, then use something like that. Just be aware of what types of media are compatible with what. And it doesn't take a lot of time to figure out if something is compatible with another type of surface. Just do a little test print on, with whatever inks you have, different types of brands of inks on, a few different types of surfaces, and see if it dries on there, see if it can be heat set, and see if it grabs and holds onto the surface, as opposed to, possibly stamping it on there, and then when it dries, it still scratches off. So just, get familiar with those types of things, and it's not too hard. One of the great equalizers is like stays on that can pretty much stamp on just about anything. So, yeah. All right, going into a completely different thing. I'm not even talking about composition on here anymore, but main images, filler stamps around them, and the smallest elements, you can stamp those last in here. It's weird looking at that little robot on all 6 of these pieces right here. I didn't put them on here because I want to have this one like as a area for a nice big word stamp in here with whatever things I choose to do on this one. So I'll finish this one off on a future video. But anyway, that's it. Thanks so much for joining in on this Friday night live here. Friday morning for some people, or one person if they're still on. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that, getting into these other colors, it wasn't too boring, in terms of just, going back to the basics with composition right here. But I don't know. It's always fun stuff. I'd recommend doing some stamp sketches for anyone, be it, beginning or advanced. And again, I think sometimes, I don't know if anything was revealed to me on these ones. I didn't do like a 8.5 by 11 with these pieces or something like this. And I was limited to just the stamps in this one set, which are going to be more conducive probably for a quarter-page card, standard size card, or, at most this. I don't think I want to do an 11 by 17 with just nature set number 11. But, you can kind of boost your creativity in terms of your usage of designs by doing just compositional types of exercises like that. So, yes, thanks for joining in. Have a great rest of evening, everyone. And again, thanks so much for joining in on the channel right here. Enjoyed it. Sorry if I missed some questions out there, but if there's anyone that has a question or whatnot that you still need answered, or if it comes up in the future, just drop me a note and we'll get back with you as soon as we can. So, yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on future videos and Facebook and all that fun stuff. All right. Good night.